Okay, so this is a video I found on the White Lives Matter Telegram channel the other day called "The Rule of Nature," which I guess could either mean this like monarchic thing, or it could mean some sort of natural law. I think it's the second, but it's kind of unclear in this video. Um, yeah, you'll see that this whole thing is predicated on this classic sort of like wrong way to do social theory, which is go out into nature and make some random observations about nature and then use those observations to come back to society and uh, justify whatever the fuck just or unjust social relations you want to exist. That's sort of the central thing here. Everyone's done it in the past. It is a problem in social science using nature to justify society, but it is very central in this video. This is again from the White Lives Matter activism Telegram channel.
There are certain truths which stand out so openly on the roadsides of life that every passerby may see them. Yet because of their very obviousness, the general run of people disregard such truths. Or at least they do not make them the object of any conscious knowledge.
Okay. The idea that there's some lost unconscious thing in white people that needs to be reawakened is central to all of white power organizing, but certainly central, it seems like now, to the White Lives Matter movement, which is we white people, I'm fucking white, we white people must awaken our racial consciousness. We've lost our racial consciousness. We've lost the glory that once was. And that the goal of activism and recruitment is to sort of awaken people to that awareness of the sort of actual superiority of white people over everyone else, which is, from my perspective, wrong and a really trashy way to think about society. But alas, that's what's going on here.
People are so blind to some of the simplest facts in everyday life that they are highly surprised.
It's also really important to point out all of this sort of nature imagery is very central to white thinking, white consciousness, that the white and oftentimes Aryan Nordic people that were close to nature have been lost, and we need to reawaken sort of that form of white people who are the superior race. The closeness of whiteness and purity through nature imagery permeates everything. I mean, it was central even in Nazi Germany.
When somebody calls attention to what everybody ought to know. All the innumerable forms in which the life urge of nature manifests itself are subject to a fundamental law.
What's that law?
One may call it an iron law of nature, which compels the various species to keep within the definite limits of their own life forms when propagating and multiplying their kind.
Okay. This is where you start to see here, let's go look at nature and apply it to human society thing happening here. The reason this is a classic thing in far-right thinking, that you use the idea of species out there on the world to justify racial segregation and to justify a sense, to make a claim that there should be no interracial mixing and breeding, is the term that they would use here, which is obviously just fucking dumb, because the reason that a chicken doesn't reproduce with, let's say, a giraffe out there somewhere in Africa is that they can't. Biologically, they can't. It's not a matter of policy segregation here or intentionally non-mixing. It's that they can't genetically reproduce, and that's how you define a species. Turns out humans can reproduce with humans. So this application of like species metaphors to race metaphors within the human species is everywhere in far right thinking, and really, really dumb. It's like the dumbest application of this whole thing of like, let's look out into nature so that we can make sense of society.
Each animal mates only with one of its own species.
Okay, so we've got monogamy too here.
The
Of course.
titmouse cohabits only with the titmouse. The finch with the finch. The stork with the stork. The field mouse with the field mouse.
It's worth saying that, like, what people imagine as nature, the stuff out there, the non-human, is much more complicated than this. Symbioses and collaborative sort of life-making are everywhere all the time, which is not to say that we should look out into nature and see a pure collaborative paradise either, but it is to say that this frame that they're taking here to describe how nature works is wrong. It's not metaphorically wrong. Well, it is metaphorically wrong, but it's also just empirically wrong. This is not how nature works.
The house mouse with the house mouse. The wolf with the she-wolf, etc.
Etc. What is this guy's accent? Okay, here we
Every
go.
crossing between two breeds, which are not
We
quite
got a
equal,
complex video.
results in a product which holds an intermediate place between the levels of the two parents. This means that the offspring will indeed be superior to the parent which stands in the biologically lower order of being. But
Okay, so this is so dumb. This is what this guy's pitching here is that he's in this social Darwinian mode, this racial fitness mode that is like not the way that we should be thinking about people, nor about nature outside of human nature. And what he's saying is that if you have a racially superior white person interbreed with, let's say, an inferior black person, their offspring will be less fit than the white parent, and thus degrade the white race, which they're saying is a species here, which is fucking bizarre and wrong to begin with. And it's a weird way to think about, it's a weird and wrong way to think about, even if you do want to do this whole social Darwinian thing, it's all about making a more competitive human race. It is like not even correct on those grounds either. It makes no sense. It's not, fitness isn't a single dimension between white at the top and everybody else towards the bottom. The world's a lot more complicated than that, bud.
not so high as the higher parent. For this reason, it must eventually succumb in any struggle against the higher species. The stronger must dominate and not mate with the weaker.
The stronger being the white people.
This urge for the
This is
maintenance
for what
of
it's
the
worth. I think, like, conversations around white supremacy today are nuanced, and the structural sense of white supremacy, I think in a lot of academic circles that I'm in, is the way that people talk about it, that there's we've rigged a society that supports white people more than other people, and that it's in the sort of policies and agreements that white supremacy exists. I think people forget that like this kind of shit is going on still too. There are huge strands of very explicit, I don't want to say actual, but non-systemic white supremacy, explicit racialized white supremacy. It's everywhere, and it is growing. I'm serious. This shit's like not going away.
breed, which is a phenomenon that prevails throughout the whole of the natural world, results not only in the
You got like
sharply
the perfect
defined
Aryan platonic ideal of a lady braiding her hair here. So white. Look, it's so fucking washed out. Also, the music in this video, oh my god. It's just like so sad, so devastating. It's like so in line with this whole fucking like white genocide, white people are being bred out of existence bullshit that I'm sure that exists in this video at some point.
distinction between one species and another, but
Okay.
also in the
So
internal.
during that transition, he was literally saying between one species and another, literally like visually implicating this metaphor that races are species and should be understood as such, which is wrong. Is wrong.
Similarity of characteristic qualities which are peculiar to each breed or species.
Yep. Different breed here, according to this guy. Different
If
species.
nature does not wish that weaker individuals should mate with the stronger,
oh my god. Literally, like in the text, having some folks dancing, it looks like somewhere in Africa, and switching over to this fucking like Bridgerton scene. Right when we talk about, what does he say? The stronger. Let's see.
Mate
this
with
transition.
The
stronger. Here we go. We're in Bridgerton, baby.
The superior race should intermingle with an inferior one. Because in such a case, all her efforts throughout hundreds of thousands of years to establish an evolutionary higher stage of being may thus be rendered futile.
By the way, when I look at this as a higher state of being
may thus be rendered futile
is not how I feel about Victorian England or wherever the fuck that was.
Causes which contributed to bring about the downfall of the German people.
Oh yeah,
we
baby.
Shall find that
Here we go. This is a thing. This is like a. I still haven't figured out how to think about this, but there is some bizarre. Like, this is where I'm like, this is Nazi shit, right? It's like, it's not Italian fascist shit. It's not Celtic revival shit in Ireland or anything like that. You just find people talking about Germanic people. It's like, wherever this white supremacist, really explicit white supremacist stuff pops up, you end up back in Germany every fucking time.
Of the German people, we shall find that the most profound and decisive cause must be attributed to the lack of insight into the racial problem, and especially in the failure to recognize the Jewish danger.
Yeah, here we go. All right, so we are in Nazi Germany now. I don't know how far I want to go into this, but people, I think the central political drama in the United States, the central racial political drama in the United States, and rightly so, is between white people and black people in this country because of the enormous trauma of chattel slavery, and the United States never having actually fully grappled with that history. And I think it's a particularly American mistake maybe to understand white supremacy as existing on that dimension, that the first thing that pops into people's mind is that in the frame of white supremacy, it's whites are superior to blacks. Everywhere else it's not really understood that way. And even in the US now, I think we need to understand this white supremacy sort of like ideology as it emerges and reemerges now that this is like globalized and like metastasized fucking everywhere in the Western world. That the drama of white supremacy is a drama between gentiles, or the broad white racially conscious people, and Jews. which is weird. And it's really weird for me because I grew up in like upstate New York and all my friends were Jewish. And I understood them largely as white. But the sort of like causal ideology underneath a lot of this white supremacy stuff is just rampant anti-Semitism, but not just anti-Semitism. It's this larger, it's been talked about as the sort of Zionist occupation government theory, Zog, which is that the Jewish globalist elites are actually in charge of everything, and they're pitting white people against one another, and even sometimes white people against black people, in order to destroy the white race. So the further you follow this down the rabbit hole, and you don't even need to actually go down a fucking rabbit hole. It's right on the surface, right? It's right here. It's right on a White Lives Matter organizing Telegram channel. We've got the theory of causality, political causality, that underneath everything, it's actually just a cabal of Jewish people that are pitting white people against one another and destroying the planet. It's everywhere.
And especially in the failure to recognize the Jewish danger.
Which is, again, not that Jewish people are going to interbreed with whites, but it's that Jewish people are going to trick whites into interbreeding with non-whites. It's kind of weird.
Neglecting the problem of preserving the racial foundations of our national life. The old empire abrogated the sole right which entitles a people to live on
I just want to say this. I just want to say this because I think it's worth saying. If you want to take a totally social Darwinian frame on how the world works, that there's some one dimension of fitness, everything's competitive, and life is just a struggle to compete. If you believe yourself to be an individual, you're individual against everyone fucking else. Or if you're a racist, you're race against everyone else. Whatever. I wouldn't put Obama in that frame, because I can't think even in that frame of a more literally fit person, along all the dimensions. Obama is athletic. He plays fucking basketball. He's tall. He's super handsome, and he's unbelievably intelligent, and he was the president of the United States. So if you want to make this claim that black people are not as fit as white people, I think the exact case you want to avoid is to never talk about Obama, who is you don't have to like his politics. On all sides, there's things to be critical of, but the dude is a fucking boss. I'm sorry. There's not really an argument against that. The guy's sick.
Nations that make mongrels of their people, or allow their people to be turned into mongrels, sin against the will of eternal providence.
Got 2007 rap culture vibes here.
At the hands of a stronger opponent cannot be looked upon as a wrong, but, on the contrary, as a restoration of justice. If a people refuses to guard and uphold the qualities with which it has been endowed by nature, and which have their roots in the racial blood, then such a people has no right to complain over the loss of its earthly existence.
Okay, so this is a pretty strong claim that if white people don't wake up to their racial endowment, then the apocalypse will come. I mean, sure, whatever. Also, this unbelievable. I think what they're implying with this shot is that these are refugees somewhere. Fuck, I don't know. Let's see what this is.
On this earth can be made into something better, provided that the racial blood is kept pure. But the loss of racial purity will wreck inner happiness forever.
I kind of wonder I kind of wonder what this like imagery actually is here. There's like recently tilled fields, and like it seems like thousands of displaced people, which like are really well organized. Like really well organized. It's not like a chaotic scene here. I don't know what this is from.
Aids men for all time to come, and the physical and moral consequences
Why
can
didn't
never
they
be wiped
harvest
out.
that chunk of corn?
If this unique problem be studied and compared with the other problems of life, we shall easily recognize how small is their importance in comparison with this.
That was like some
They
confusing
are
old
all
grammar.
limited.
That was some confusing old grammar there at the end. But yeah, this is the kind of stuff that's like circulating on the White Lives Matter Telegram channels. Like this is mandatory viewing for someone recent to the channel, and it's like, look, like the frame of this is our race, white people, are better than everybody else and should rule everybody else, it seems, because we are superior and we shouldn't interbreed with other races, which in this theory are different species, which is not true. And I think this is where, like, you know, when people like White Lives Matter, just in the way that it pitches itself with its name, like wants to suggest that it's like operating as a counterforce or some like equally a group like Black Lives Matter, you know, that's advocating for the better treatment of a race of people, whether it's black people in the case of Black Lives Matter, advocating for less abuse by police, better treatment in the criminal justice system, and all throughout society, advocating for like real policy change that's like realistic and constitutionally sound. um, the frame of Black Lives Matter is that everybody should be treated equally under the law, and we haven't lived up to that promise yet, and so we need to like do work to get there. And it's a relatively like inclusive movement. Like I've gone to Black Lives Matter rallies. It's not about awakening the racial consciousness of black people. And that's what this is. This is about racism. It's about racial awakening. It's about division. It's about, and not only that, it's about a story of superiority, and that there's some sort of like, let's fucking use nature metaphors to justify the superiority of white people. They're not the same. They're not the same. And when people, say, I mean, to go to a Black Lives Matter rally and have some guy standing on the sidelines yelling White Lives Matter is like, yeah, like everybody should be treated equally under the law, and we're not right now. But that's not the claim that's being made. The claim that's being made by White Lives Matter is that white people are superior to other races and should not interbreed, which is psychotic. It's not the same thing. They're not even on the same they're not in the same category of political philosophy. This is a completely unreal. And I've started to refer to these folks this way. No, I mean, this is not the worst of it, right? This is White Lives Matter. This is like this is like activism to a certain extent. This isn't the like deep shit. But it's different. It's unreal. The demands that they're making are completely insane, completely against the general sense of justice that exists in this country and throughout the world now. And it's a countercurrent that like just is like swimming upstream, and they're mad about that. But in the end, the only way to like really get what they're asking for is like through really extreme means. And that's what scares me, we're not going to go back to a totally segregated country. Sorry, the ship sailed. Like, get on board or like go somewhere else. That's not what we're doing here anymore. I'm gonna try to make more videos like this with other stuff I find around. I know there's like this problem with platforming that people like to talk about, but if you read sort of the perspectives, like should we be watching these videos? Should I be watching these videos? Should I be amplifying these videos? And like if you look into how the NAACP and ADL talk about this kind of stuff, like we need to make this stuff public. It can't just live on these Telegram channels that literally, I was on it the other day, 10,000 White Lives Matter activists organizing, you know, rallies and banner drops all over the country. So I think we really need to, it's been really fulfilling engaging with this stuff. So I'm going to keep making these videos, sort of reaction videos or some shit of that genre. And I hope you like them.